Alright guys, so in today's Lightroom tutorial, I'm going to show you how to take this bland image here and turn it into this moody sunset in under 30 minutes. So if you guys want to see how to do that, stay tuned. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so yesterday I edited this photo. It's a drone shot I took last November. I shot this in JPEG. I was not shooting RAW back then, so my times as photographer have changed. But anyways, so the shot began something like this, and then I turned it into this moody kind of sunset feel image, and like something like this. So I posted this on my Instagram. Like, I didn't post it, I posted it in the stories and asked you guys and asked my Instagram followers if they wanted to see it. My Instagram was crazy. I was flooded with tons of DMs, and you guys seem to yeah, you guys really seem to like that. It's like I got like 30 responses. So if you guys want to see how we do that, let's go ahead, head over here to this image and jump over to develop module. Now I probably am not going to cut anything out of this tutorial. If I messed up on my wording, I might cut something out, but it's going to take it's going to take a really big screw up to make me cut this out, because I want you guys to see my workflow from beginning to finish. So I'm guessing it's going to be around 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and jump into this. And yeah, so first thing first, we're going to jump over to develop module. If you guys are in something like this, go ahead and hit fit over here. We want to see the whole image. You can always close this if you want to and make the image bigger. I like to keep it out. You can also close that if that's up. Anyways, you can close all these panels over here and just see the image if you want to, or you could hit F and go into full screen mode, okay? So that being said, let's go ahead and jump over to the basic slider here. So let's just, we want the highlights to start showing up over here. So let's take the highlights and drag them down, and you can see that we started to recover a little bit of detail. You can hit Y to see before and after. And now let's go ahead and open up the shadows just a little bit. Actually, what I did, I think I want to shut the shadows up a little bit, because you see in the other image I had let it open up here real quick. I had like a little bit of sun coming through here, or I added that really, and we have like the darker over here and the brighter part of the image over there. So I'm going to create the shadows to darken up that side of the image, the highlights or the white part of the image, the whiter parts of the image. We'll see this. So let's go ahead and drop the shadows, and then holding Alt, you can open up the whites until there's just a little bit of dots. So up there in the sky, as you guys can see, up there in that general area, there is some white speckles. That's good. And then we can do the same for black. Hold it down until there's a decent amount of black. That again will just show, bring off some of the shadow detail there. So again, we just have some more, a darker part of this image and a brighter part of that image over there. And then this is a ocean shot, and I want a lot of the detail in the water to open up. So we take the clarity and we'll drag it to around 25% before and after. There we go. Next thing here, we want to either change the white balance of the image. I want to put it a little bit of a colder side. I'll tell you why. I want the shadows to be a little bit colder. So I think if we just keep it there, honestly, it's a pretty cool image overall. I'm gonna just take the pinks and make the tint of the image a little bit more to the green. Like that. That's pretty good. So with that, that's pretty much the basic slider. As you guys can see, if you just reset the image here, not a big deal has changed, but pretty you know, it's a start. Next thing is I want to go over here to the gradient filter. There's really no particular order you can go in with editing. I just kind of grab one thing and edit it when I see fit. So grab the gradient filter, put it over the sky here, and I'll just drag the exposure down, and I'll probably add a touch of dehaze to it, something like that. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And then I'll probably add a little bit of contrast to it and open up the clarity a little bit. Let's go ahead and zoom in to 100% here. As you guys can see, we have a little bit of noise up there. So let's just go ahead and touch the noise, and we can turn this on or off like so. Okay. It might be just a little bit too cold for my personal tasting. So we'll just take the white balance of this part right here and open it up, and then before and after. There we go. You can drag this down. I'm just drag it to the horizon line. You can hit O if you want to see where what part of the image it's affecting. So drag it to right there. Unhit O, and then there we go. I might open up the shadows just a little bit on the black part of the image there. Looking good so far. before and after, like so, looking pretty good. Now the image is still needing to be worked on, so the next thing I want to do is let's go ahead over to the tone curve. Why not? Now I have my curves on the whatever that one is, where there's this little I forget what it's called. It's a point curve, I think. Yeah, it's called a point curve. And just grab this part right here, drag this up, and you see as I drag it up, it starts to add like a faded look to the image. So I'm gonna drag that right around there, and then I'll add a point right there, drag that down, and then add something like that. Now this is kind of like one of my favorite S curves to use. This is kind of faded, so as you guys can see before and after, the blacks of the image are kind of opened up, but they're also faded out a touch, so it adds some contrast to the points like over here, and it also just opens up the shadows a little bit in the darks and fades them out. You can also do that over here. Up in basics, we can grab the blacks and make sure the blacks are faded, but that's not what I want to do, just because I do that in the tone curve and still have a decent amount of black in the image to the parts of the image that'll look kind of I want it to be more in the shadows, like there's like the sun is starting to set and the sun is no longer shining on that part of the image anymore, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Next, there's a bunch of stuff we can do here. So we have the tone curve. Let's go over here to the camera calibration. Now this is the part that's going to need a bunch of tweaking, so we'll do some initial adjustments here, and then we'll probably come back. If I don't come back, that'll be a pretty big thing, but I'll probably come back here later and try to toy around a little bit more. So I'm going to move this until we get a pretty decent amount of warmth in the sky here. So I think the blue we'll make the blue a little bit more teal, and then we'll take the green primary, drag that 100% in the. I'm trying to create a decent looking ocean while still bring out a bunch of the color up here in the sky that's there initially, but just not as visible in the before and after. Like the color can be there, we're just kind of opening up the saturation of that color in the sky. So we're going to use that with the camera calibration. You can see it's a little bit more orange still. Now the red is going to really either make the image really bright in the yellows. So I think we're going to take the red, something like that. So as you can see, not that much has changed. The blues are a little bit more to the teals, but the yellow part of the image up there in the top right corner, where the sun's going to be when we finish it, is pretty decent. So I'll open up the things that we've already done. So we've done camera calibration, check. We've done tone curve, check, and we've done our basics, check. Now we can always come back here. We've also done this, so go ahead, check that off. We might just think we're gonna do, yeah, something like that. Okay. So now what? We're gonna have to go over to the split toning. Okay. We could put a little bit of warmth in the shadows. This is all again to taste, guys. So I'm gonna show you kind of what I want to do. I think what I'll do is I'll put like a deep. Yeah, I'll do that. Put a little bit of blues in the shadows. Probably drop the saturation. Now it's not a big thing, but it just adds a little bit of a colder touch to it. So if you see like after the sun sets, the shadows will always be kind of blue in photos, and if it's during the day, the shadows will be more warm. So I want one part of the image to be more of a nighttime feel, and one part of the image to be a more moody sunset feel. And to do that, we're going to use split toning. And we just take the highlights and drag the highlights up here. So the highlights are going to be the brightest parts of the image, and we're going to make them like that. Is actually really good. So as you guys can see, just a little bit of work with the split toning, and we're able to add a bunch of color over here into the sky, and then also make our shadows look more of a nighttime feel. Now that's pretty good for our next step, which we're going to be doing here. So yeah, that's pretty good. Before and after looking really good already. If you want to see a bigger before and after, just go ahead, reset, Command Z, and you guys can see before and after. So before, after, and we're not stopping there. No, we're not. We're gonna keep going. So next thing, let's go ahead down here to the lens correction. I'll show what we're gonna do here. We're going to enable profile corrections. Go over here. So I'm shooting on the DJI Phantom 3, that one right there. as you guys can see, the what is it, enable profile correction. So we're just going to disable that. As you guys can see, we have a little bit of well, actually, if I turn this on, it removes some of the fisheye from the lens. However, it doesn't do the best job, so I'm going to do that manually. This will just remove some of the chromatic aberration, like down here in the corners. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see, you probably won't be able to see that on the screen recording, but there's like a pink lines, blue lines that appear all around the edges of sharp objects in the photograph, and this will kind of remove the fringing or chromatic aberration. Now distortion, you guys can see we want the horizon to be straight. You see it puts up a grid, and we want the horizon to line up with the grid, so before and after that, looking pretty good. And probably just back it down just a little amount, like so. So as you guys can see, that's a pretty decent thing going on so far. That'll just help. That'll give the, we don't want any like that on the earth. We don't want to see any GoPro effect or curvature of the earth. So that is pretty good just so far. Maybe just a little bit more to taste, around 12%. That's always going to be different depending on your camera and lens setup, so keep that in mind. You're going to probably want to do that manually each time. So what are we at now? We have a decent looking image. The kind of negative bulging of the earth there, we fixed that. We've color graded it, so we have kind of a cool shadows, and we have more of a brighter highlights. Let's go ahead and grab a radio filter, and let's go ahead and do something called dodge and burning. So the first thing, which is the biggest thing here, is we're going to take the exposure up here, make sure it's on the inside, take the exposure up, drag that over here into the corner, and then just add a really warm feel to it, like so. So just change the white balance to something a lot warmer. Go ahead, open up the exposure until it kind of seems like a sunset sort of dealio there. Go ahead and make that. You can also change the feather radius of it. I want it to be pretty soft, so I think something around 50% is pretty good. That might be just a little bit too much. That's pretty good right there. Now check this out, before and after. Go into split view here. Look, we're starting to add our own sunset sort of vibe over here into the image. Next thing we have to do here is we'll have to grab another one. Now these are amazing little tools here. I tell you guys, these are one of my favorite things. I'm sorry if my computer fans are audible in the video. I try to keep those as quiet as possible, but in a quiet room where I'm recording in, it's kind of hard to keep computer fans, especially on a laptop, quiet. So I'm hoping to not disturb the image too much. Yeah, alright. So again, this one we want to make sure the mask is inverted. We're going to step up the warmth, because look at this. This building right here is one of the more prominent buildings you'll be looking at, and the sun is, well, what we say the sun is in this direction over here, casting across the water, and it's going to be hitting this building. So if you ever see us, whenever the sun is setting, guys, you look at it, your face lights up with the orange glow. It's the same with buildings. The buildings will light up too. So we don't want it to be cold, because why the heck would a building be cold if it's in the sunset? So make it warm, possibly crank up the exposure a little bit, and make it seem pretty realistic there. Add maybe a touch of dehaze to it, and you guys can see before and after. That's pretty good. Look at that, pretty good. Do this, see before and after. So like right now, when this is with no radio filters, this looks like a really crappy color graded image here, but once we add the radio filters, it's starting to look more like a sunset and something that you would want to be part of. So next, another one of these filters. So pretty much what I'm just doing, I'm adding selective lighting, which is called dodge and burning. So I'm dodging and burning. I'm adding shadows and highlights. Right now I'm just doing some highlights. Let's go ahead and add some shadows here. So like before, invert the mask, because you want, unless you want the outside to be affected, let's just go ahead and like invert the mask, because I don't want the outside of the, I want everything inside of this filter to be affected, not the outside. So let's go ahead and just invert that. I hope you guys get what I'm saying. I want the inside of it to be affected, not the outside. There's different, different ways you can do that, but I want the inside for this image. Get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? I hope you do. I hope you get what I'm saying. It makes sense to me. Anyways, so let's go ahead, add a little bit of dehazing to this, and drop the exposure a little bit. little bit less dehazing. Add maybe a touch of warmth to it. Drop the exposure, and then over here you can see there is an X here, or like a no color effect. Hopefully we can just kind of add like a blue tint to it, something like that. Before and after. Oh no, I picked something really green. Back here. There we go, something like that. As you guys can see, if I can say my words, before and after, we kind of played around with the lighting. Brighter part of the image is happening over here, darker part of the image is going on over there. Let's go ahead and drop the clarity on this part of the cloud. I want there to be more details over there and less details over here, so drop the clarity by 100%. This will just kind of remove any JPEG artifacting or JPEG noise. Again, guys, this is a JPEG image, so I'm really pushing the boundaries of this. If this was a raw image, I would probably have a way better chance of making this seem a little bit more realistic. But you know what? No biggie. I can make it. I can do what I does. So then I'm just going to add a little bit of noise help here. It's kind of maybe 27%. This will help with reducing any noise and also clean out some of the JPEG artifacts. All right, pretty sick. Pretty sick indeed. That looks pretty good. Next thing I want to do, I want to open up, I'm going to brighten up this part of the image here. If I sneeze here in a second, that's because my room has just been cleaned, which I'm recording in. There's a bunch of dust floating around, so I might have to cut the video if I sneeze. First time I'd cut the video probably. Let's go ahead, invert the mask in like always. There's different points that is required, but right now I want to invert it. I want to add a little bit of warmth to the water, add a touch of dehazing, add a touch of clarity, and then in the water before and after, looking pretty good. Next thing, so this, all you guys can see, a lot of my work is revolving around the gradient filters, or the radial filters. I'll get to the gradient filters in a second here. Maybe, gosh, probably just drop the exposure a touch here. Drop the exposure before and after. Add a little bit of darkening there. A touch of. I'm gonna go with a little bit of a warmth to it. I can also add a little bit of color here, so maybe a little bit of pink. Drag it over to the pinks. Drop the saturation. There you go. Not a big deal. Just adds a little bit more to the coast there. Up the clarity. I want there to be a lot of detail in there. As you guys can see, like along this edge right here, the reflection of where the water once was, and it kind of receded, and now it's coming back to it. There's that kind of really cool look there. So I just want to make sure that that kind of stands out a little bit more. Whether or not people are looking at that, I don't know. I don't really know, but I gotta do it. Duplicate this, and I'm just gonna drag this over here and make it a little bit bigger. Drag it there. Probably change the exposure just a little bit on there, and then before and after. So yeah, that's looking pretty good for before and after. Probably put just one more filter over here. Now again, guys, you don't want to overdo it. I'm pretty much overdoing it on this image, but this is, you know, you're technically not altering the image that much. I mean, it's there, you're just adding selective color points to it, so whatever. It's digital photography, so you have, this is kind of, we're in the age where it's gonna really catch your eye if there's a lot of colors and a lot of saturation to it. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. If somebody's on Instagram and it's just that image right there, hell no. No one is going to double tap that. No one. But if it's something like this with a lot of saturation, a lot of mood and vibes to it, yeah, someone is definitely going to like it. Definitely going to like it. So before and after, looking pretty good. Is there anything else we can do for you here? I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to put one more filter here on where the sun is. Open up the exposure a little bit and just set that right there. This is going to add just that much more to the image. Make it like that's where the sun is, or the sun has just gone down. And yeah, it's pretty good right there. That is pretty good indeed. Alright, so the image which I edited yesterday, looks like that, and the image I'm editing today looks like that. Honestly, guys, for me, it is impossible to edit a photograph exactly the same as I've done it one day and then coming back the next day. It's pretty much impossible for me. But I'm going to show you kind of how I did this in the best way that in the general sense of how I did it yesterday. So stick with me, guys. Probably add a little bit more clarity here. As you guys can see, that just adds kind of a really cool effect to it. I typically don't like using clarity, but on this image, when there's all this detail in the sand here, all this detail in the water, all this detail in all the houses here on the beachfront houses, yeah, this is definitely a time to use clarity for sure, Okay, now the next part we come to is hue. This one really helps with trying to get the hue of the blues to whatever you want it to be. So just do something like that, and this is again, guys, to taste. So something like that. You probably will be able to see a better you'll probably be able to see it a little bit better in the end, but for sure, hang on, the device I'm recording this audio with probably just went like and it sounds so terrible to you guys, but yeah, so sorry for that. I want it to be more of a pinky feel in the yellows, so check it out, guys. We're just dumping the yellow over to the right or to the left, if I can get my left hand and my right hand mixed lined up properly, and just kind of make the saturation, hue, whatever, feel decent. So I got this before and after. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but it just adds a little bit, a little bit more to the image when you do it like that. You can just change the hues just a little bit. You're technically changing the image there, but honestly, I mean, is that much? If I just change it to a little bit red, probably not. Saturations of all your colors. I recommend playing with each one of these. Probably back the oranges down a little bit. Same as with the yellows. I don't like a lot of saturation on my images. Like, I like pinks and blues. So if the pinks and blues are oversaturated, that's good for me. But if it's like too cheesy and the saturation's like really over the top, just yeah, you're probably not gonna get a like from me. I don't like that much saturation. I like saturation, but not that much. So before and after with the hue, saturation, and luminance so far. The HSL slider there, pretty good. Take the orange, crank up the oranges, like so, and the blues, like so, and then just quick before and after. Not much before and after here, not that much, but it just adds a little bit more to the image, and it's giving me the effect that I want overall in the end. So that is definitely how it goes. And you guys can see, if you turn everything off, every different thing has its own part to play when adjusting an image. So if you turn these back on again, we're going to get to the image that we were editing just originally. Now, this is the one that I really like, the tone curve. Look at this before and after. It just adds that kind of faded look to it. And just look at the blacks. Like, watch this part of an image over here. If I turn the tone curve off, like, that doesn't look real. And like, look at the water. Like, there's too much black from the white. Like, that should be more of a blue. So, and with the tone curve, we just kind of take that away and make it feel a little bit more right. You know, it feels more right. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I did here. We can go to the effects, add a little bit of, excuse me, I've been talking this whole time, I need some water. Anyways, let me finish this here. Add a little bit of post-crop vignetting. You can add a little bit of dehaze if you want to. I'm going to leave that alone. I've done all my dehazing selectively with the gradient, or with the radial filter here. You guys can see some of them have dehazing to it, so that's pretty good. And now, the gradient filter here, which is one of my favorite filters. Look at that, before and after. If that was not there, whew, that'd be tough to live with. Like, one part of the image is decently exposed for, but one part of the image is not. So what gives? Let's add a little bit of killer up here to this image. I'm not sure if it's going to add that much to it. It's probably going to affect more of the blue part of the image. Is that too much to it? Probably not. So let's take that down. If it's like too dark, oops, sorry, let's actually click on it. Duh. Let me like try and explain why it's not working. Yeah, here we go. So just add selectively kind of what we want to do here. I want to add, what do I want to add? So kind of like go up to the way to the top. This is like the most saturation you can put in it. And then once you find like a color, colors you like, drop the saturation, and there we go. That's pretty good. Before and after. There we go. So we have more of our dark side over here, our light side over here. Not Star Wars. It's not a Star Wars reference. Although you probably thought that immediately when I said that. I can see where your mind is. To add a little bit of our own kind of sort of vignetting. This is what we did in the other one. Like so. Add a filter like this over the top. Okay. Before and after on this. I'll probably have to go through each one of these and open up the brightness just a little bit. This is just a little bit too dark for my personal liking. Go ahead, open these up a little bit. Before and after looking pretty good so far. Go ahead, close out of that. And now that is looking pretty good. Let's just make sure the horizon line is pretty straight. Grab that there. You can hit reset on that. Yep, that looks about right. If you want to do any cropping to it, go ahead. I'm not going to. It looks pretty good. Just see this side by side. So look at what we began with over here. So if I just click reset right here, this is what we began with, and if I hit Command Z, this is what we have gotten to in just under 30 minutes, around 27 minutes of editing. So it's pretty decent. Look at that. I mean, that's a pretty photo. It's a drone shot. What can I say? This is the photo we began with, and we can turn it into this sunset photo that looks really good in my opinion. And you guys can see the image I did yesterday was this one. Very similar images, however, I cannot, recreate the same images every single time, but I'll try my best to in most cases. So let's go ahead over to split toning. Maybe I don't even need. Let's try to do the shadows a little bit more. If you guys like that style right there, that's pretty interesting. I think that looks pretty good. Go back to the basics. Just do a little bit more fine-tuning adjustments. Open up the shadows a little bit. Set a little bit more exposure to the image. What about vibrance? Add a little bit more vibrance to the image. That's pretty good, guys. I mean, coming from something like this and turning into something like this is really kind of a pretty amazing testimony of what you can do with Lightroom and a digital photo. So guys, if you enjoyed this 30-minute masterclass of how to edit a drone shot like I did, go ahead, leave a like on this video. I applaud you for sticking through this. You are a dedicated man, my friend. You are very dedicated to photography. So I will see you in the outro. See you then, guys. Bye.